Okay, it is 12 o'clock, so I guess we will get started. There we are. Well, good afternoon. My name is Leola Carter, and I am your host for today's webinar. I am a SCORE mentor in the Minnesota division, where we have over 90 volunteers serving both Manatee and Sarasota County. I am also on the Education Committee and excited to bring to you today's presentation on conquering Excel with awesome templates. But before that, a little bit more about us here at SCORE. We are a nationwide nonprofit that is part of the Small Business Administration. And what can we do for you? We provide free mentoring and educational services, such as this webinar. We can help you with that first initial thought when you're opening your business, growing your business, or all the way up through when it is time to sell. We have a team ready to help you with all of these functions. To find us, you can visit us at score.org/Minnesota, where you will find all of these services. And today would not be possible if it weren't for our sponsors and community partners that we have listed here. Thank you to those organizations. And now it is time to introduce one of my fellow SCORE mentors and my mentor on the Education Committee, my go-to person for every computer issue, challenge, and resolution. Welcome, Diane.
Well, thank you, Leola. Let me share my screen. And
while Diane is doing that, to let you know, as she's presenting, if you do have any questions, you can type those into chat and she will try to get those answered as we go along. And then hopefully they'll, be a timely answer instead of you thinking of it throughout the entire presentation. And anybody that has tuned in so far today, you will receive a copy of this video presentation in your email in just a day or two.
all right, thank you, Leola. Welcome, everyone. Though this is already, I'm going to give a disclaimer. Though this is all about templates, we're not going to start with a template. My name is Diane McKeever. I have been an Excel instructor for more than 30 years, probably before some of you were born. But I love Excel. I'm probably in it almost every day and helping people with their Excel questions. So as Leola said, if you have some questions as we go along, can you put them in the chat? I see there's already one from Leslie. Hi, I'm an AI assistant helping. Oh. So somebody is taking notes, an AI person is taking notes. Is that a redundant AI in person? Okay, well, we're just going to start with a blank worksheet. And you might wonder why, if I'm going to talk about templates, I would start with a blank worksheet. And it's really because I think that I can't bring you into a template until you understand some fundamental things in Excel. So I can hear the groans of some of you saying, oh my gosh, I already use Excel. I probably know everything about the fundamentals. And we will see, won't we? But I want to start with a blank worksheet and work our way up and then open a template. And I think it will help you understand what's going on in the template a little bit better if I do that. So you probably are aware that Excel is a series of columns and rows. And of course, the columns are the vertical units and the rows are the horizontal units. And at the intersection of every column and row is a cell. And that cell has a unique address. And this is important to know because when you're creating formulas, you need to use these addresses. And when I'm talking about an address, for instance, this cell that I have active, the one that has a border around it, is in column E and row 6. So if I were referring to this, I would put in E6. The letter always goes first and the number follows, just like in bingo, right? B27, G9, exactly the same format. If you ever lose where your active cell is, maybe it's gone someplace off your screen, there's actually a little name box in the upper left corner of your screen. You can see that this little box, I hope you can see it. I was able to zoom a lot, but I can't zoom this part. This little box actually says E6. So if I click on another cell, you see how it always tells me the address of the active cell, and that's handy. In each cell, I can put one of three things. I can put text, numbers, and formulas, and we're going to be using all three of those today. So if I were starting a little profit and loss statement, which is actually the template that we're going to look at in a little while, if I wanted to create it all by myself, and of course, when you open up an Excel worksheet, this is just kind of scary, isn't it? It's like public speaking. You know, public speaking is number one on a list of scary things for people. I think using an Excel blank worksheet is certainly in the top 10. But here in cell A1, I'm going to just type some text. So I'm going to say that we have a little walk my dog service. So there's the name of my company. And then I would say what this is all about. This is my 2024 profit and loss statement. And I'm just going to leave them hanging over there. If I then wanted to put some categories and some time periods, like maybe a monthly, typically the categories go down a column. So a column would be all of my categories, and going across would be my time periods. I'm going to put my time periods in first. I don't want to put anything in the first cell because that's where my categories are going to be. So I'm going to come over to B4, and let's say that we're going to actually do this for 2025. I know I typed in 2024 profit and loss statement, but I'm going to fix that in a moment. So I'll start on January 2025. And then, of course, I would want to put February 2025 and so forth. But this is where one of the magical things about Excel comes into play. When you click on a cell, you can see that the outer edge of the cell has a border around it, but you'll also notice that something funky is going on in the lower right corner of that cell. When I move my mouse onto that lower right corner, my mouse changes. A moment ago, it was a big chunky plus sign. When it's a chunky plus sign, it's used to highlight or select cells. But when I move it to this little corner, it turns into this chunky, plus sign. And this is on what we call the fill handle. This little tiny dot in the corner is a fill handle. And when I put my mouse on it and I hold down the mouse and drag, it's going to be filling information. Well, what kind of information would it be filling? Well, this is a smart little cookie. I tell you, this Excel program, maybe it's the Microsoft people. I don't know who's smart here, but because I just typed in January 2025, it said, I bet you're thinking monthly. So if I wasn't thinking monthly, I would have to actually give it two pieces of information, but monthly is great. Yeah, July 2025. And did you see that as I was dragging, it has a little label that pops out to tell me what it's going to fill in. So I don't even have to count to figure out when I get to December. I'm going to pull over. When I get to December, when it says December 2025, I'm going to let go, and there it is. So it's filled that in very nicely. So I'll put in a title here, yearly total. So I want to navigate back to the beginning of my worksheet. I'm just going to do a little keyboard shortcut here for that. I'm going to hold down the control key or the command key, depending upon whether you're an Apple or a PC person, and I'm going to hit the home key. The control or command home always gets me back to the upper left corner of my screen. I like to do that. It makes it real fast for me to go there. And so then I'm just going to put in some categories. So typically we start with income. We always like to see how much money is coming in, and then it gets depressing at the end when we have to have expenses and we find out that, oh, all that money isn't really mine. Okay, So I'll put in income, and then I'm going to put in some income categories. Now, here at SCORE, we try to encourage you to have a variety of revenue streams that, yes, you're a plumber, and yes, everybody's paying for your plumbing business, or in my case, my dog walking business. But I want to break down my income categories so that I can better track what my best profit part of my business is. So I'm going to say walks is one thing that I do, but I also do drop bys. You know, everybody's working. I'm going to put drop in just because I don't think that buys looks good. Drop ins. And maybe, I know this is an awful thing, especially if you're living in Florida, but maybe I do poop scoops. Who has time for poop scoops? Got the pup, but you know, those kids aren't going to volunteer to do it, right? Not in Florida, not in the heat, not in the smell. Oh, so by breaking my income down into different categories, it's going to allow me to see where my revenue stream is coming from. And perhaps then I might focus on something more than another. And I'll do overnights. Okay, so that's enough income categories. So I think I'll say total income, or actually this should be gross, right? Because this is income prior to taking out our expenses. So clearly a column is not wide enough to handle all of this. So I'm going to do a couple of things. First thing I'm going to do is scroll out so I can see my entire year. And I'm going to move Leola over onto this corner. Okay, sorry, Leola, but you moved over onto a whole nother screen. I would like to have some of this information centered. Now, back in the day, because I've been using Excel since version 2, back in the day, that used to be tricky, but I'm just going to have this centered across this band. And so to do that, I've highlighted this group of cells. And let me show you a little trick. If I wanted to do that, I could click on the first cell. I could hold down the shift key on my keyboard and click on the last cell, and you see how everything in between is selected. That's often easier than dragging, because dragging is a drag, and sometimes you drag too far and not far enough. On the Home tab, in the alignment group, we have a beautiful thing that says merge and center, and that's exactly what it has done. It's taken all of those cells and merged them into one. I'm going to do that again just because that was great. I'm going to click on the first cell, hold down the shift key, click on the last cell. I call that click shift click if I'm talking about it, and merge and center. Oh, and by the way, I was going to change this, wasn't I, to 2025 profit and loss statement. So I have a couple of places that I could do that. If you look with this selected, if you look above your worksheet, you can see this is called the formula bar. The formula bar always displays what's in the cell. If there's nothing in the cell, there's nothing in the formula bar. So if I click on this, you see it shows me the contents of it. I can change it, edit it here, or since I've already clicked on this, I'm going to double click on this, and that then activates the cell, and I can make a change to it right there without having to navigate all the way up to the formula bar. Okay, so I've got those. I could format those. I'm not going to spend a lot of time formatting. Formatting is fun, but not as productive as other things that I'd like to talk to you about. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to then change the width of a column so that it is wide enough to show all of the information. Because if I start to type something in here, the cell next to gross income, you see that it truncates it, it closes, it doesn't allow the text to be displayed because something was in that cell. So I'm going to change the width of the column. Now I can drag this. I'm sure you all have been taught to drag until you're happy with it. But what I prefer doing is coming up here between A column and B column and doing a nice little click, 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 click. And you see that makes it best fit. And I can do that to all of these columns, right? Double click, and you see that it reduces the size. I may need to make these larger later once I have data in it, but for now, I like that. Another thing that I like is I like to emphasize the income and the gross income, the heading and the total. And so what I'm going to do is going to take these entries, and I'm actually going to move them over just an ounce. Now, back in the day, and I suspect that some people are still doing it, some people are actually typing like space, 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 and then putting in a heading. Oh, don't let me see you do that on your worksheet. Okay, so I've got these highlighted, and in the alignment group on the home tab, there is a lovely little button that says increase the indent. That's all I have to do. And that's indented. And so you see how it's a little bit easier to see, okay, this is the income, but these are the income categories. And I can continue doing that. If this was a subcategory of walks, I could indent it further. So we have an indent, increase indent, and decrease indent buttons, and we can use them effectively. Okay, let me see. Do you prefer to put header or title in the spreadsheet versus the header or footer option? Okay, well, I prefer putting it in the worksheet because I can see it. If I put it in the header and title on the spreadsheets, it's in the setup of the printing, and I don't actually see it. So in my world, I do it on the worksheet. But either way, whatever you're accustomed to doing is fine. I just think I have a little bit more control over the formatting. I can, change the color of these, and that's a harsh color, isn't it? And so forth. And while I do have some formatting capability in the settings, it's not nearly what I would like. So we're ready to put in some numbers and some formulas. Now, there are people in this world, and again, I hope it's none of you, who would at this moment take out a calculator. I have worked with people. I often go into offices and just look at people's worksheets and see how they work and offer them some one-on-one tips on how they can work more effectively, more efficiently in Excel. And one of the first things that I do is I just click around to random cells where I expect to see formulas. And often I don't see formulas. I see numbers, hard numbers that were typed in, and it really hurts my heart to see that. So let's see if we can create a couple of formulas that will do the calculation for us. So let's say that we charge $25 for a walk, and we're starting off in January. Of course, it's season here in Florida. I don't know if you're in Florida, but we can expect in Florida, January, February, March, April are good months, and then it kind of peters out until October, and then it ramps up October, November, December. So we're going to start with a busy month. So January, we're going to do some walks. Maybe we do 2 walks a day, 5 days a week. So that's 10 walks a week, 4 weeks, 40 walks, $25. What would that be? So we're going to put in a formula. Now, how do we tell Excel that we're going to be putting in a formula? We do that by typing the equal sign. The moment we type the equal sign, Excel is paying attention to us and saying, okay, what would you like to do? So we said, I think we said 40 walks that we're going to do, and we're going to multiply that. So we'll put in our little operator of the asterisk, and we're going to say that's $25 each. And so, so there's $1,000 for the month from our walks. we'll format this a little bit later because I like anything over 1,000. If people don't put commas in, it just makes it hard for me to read. It's all about me. So I'll put in commas in a little while. Drop-ins, we don't charge as much for them and we don't have as many clients. So maybe we only have 3 days a week. 3 times 4 is 3 times 4 is 12. So 12 of these, and maybe we're going to charge $20 for them. So it equals 12 times 20. Public math, that's called. Everybody is bad at public math because it's 16, isn't it? I could hear you all. Okay, I can change it, right? I can double click on that, change the 12 to a 6. Okay, poop scoops. Okay, I charge a lot for poop scoops, but I don't have too many poop scoop clients. So let's say that I'll charge $40, but I only have 4 clients. So this is going to equal 4 times 40. And overnights, we charge 40 for that. And let's say that we have 10 of those. 10, whoops, I can't just type 10. Oh, I heard you all. Equals 10 times 40. And so now we have some rough estimates. And this is what we do this is what I do with my SCORE clients. I always put together a profit and loss statement for them because it's important that they see when the numbers are going up and the numbers are going down, and it helps us analyze the progress and direction that the business is going in. So now I'm ready to add these numbers up. And while I could create a formula, I could say that it equals B6 plus B7 plus B8 plus B9. I could do that. But when you have a lot of numbers, it's a very inefficient way of doing it. And Microsoft has given us a wonderful tool. In this cell, I'm going to ask it to add the numbers up. And to do that, I'm going to use a function that's on the editing, in the editing group of the Home tab, and it's the auto sum function. And as I hover above it, it says it automatically added up. Well, that's not very good English. Your total will appear after the selected cells. Well, I don't have any cells selected, but you'll see it works anyway. Because when I click once on the auto sum button, it puts the sum function. The sum function begins with an equal sign, just as every other formula or function does, and it puts in the word sum. And the programmers at Microsoft have taught Excel that sum means add up the numbers. And you can see that it is automatically put in B6 colon B9, and it's put a little marquee. Somebody in my class once called it dancing ants, and I can't look at it without thinking about that. It put in a marquee around the cells that it was assuming that you were adding. And so all I have to do is enter, and there is my total. So the idea of this is that if I change any of these numbers, if I say, it's not, I think I'm going to actually be able to do 6 of these, I'll change the 6. And of course, it has changed my poop scoop number, but it's also changed my gross income number. So one thing that I could do with my fill handle, remember my fill handle here in the lower right corner, one thing that I can do is I know that this formula is going to be perfect for February, March, and April, and so forth. So as long as I have this lovely formula, I'm going to take my fill handle and I'm going to drag it across. And remember that the fill handle can only go in one direction. I cannot do it diagonal, or it has to be horizontal or vertical. And so now waiting in these cells is a formula. So when I come into my February, I said, let me see, I said 40 at 25. I'm going to say February is going to equal 50 at 25. And you can see that it's waiting there for us. By the same token, I would like it to add these numbers across, right? So I need a sum function here. And again, I don't have to highlight this. That was the direction that it gave. You don't have to highlight it. I'm just going to click on the auto sum, and 99% of the time it guesses the correct cells, and I'm going to enter that. And can you imagine, that's a great formula, right? I know it's working here, but I would like it to add all of the numbers across. So again, creeping up on this fill handle, I'm going to pull that down. It has added all the numbers across. If I add any more information here, it's automatically going to calculate it. Okay, no more questions, no questions. Good for you guys. All right. Am I talking too fast? Sometimes I do. Will the auto sum still work if you add a new row? What a brilliant question, Victoria. Yes, maybe. That's probably not the answer that you were hoping, was it? But here's the reason why maybe. If you see that this sum function is 6 through 9, right? B6 through B9. If I insert a new row 10, if I say I want to insert a new item and I'm going to put it here, that's outside of the range. And so the range will not expand automatically. But if I put a new row here, and I'll show you how to do insert a new row because we will be doing that in our template. If I insert, let's say, a new row 8, do you see that I click over here on the row number 8 and I'm going to right click on it? When I right click, you know that that's when you get your opportunity for all of your changes and such. So I'm going to choose insert. It's inserted a new row. That row is exactly the same actually as the row above it. So if I put in scarves or treats, I'm going to sell treats. Maybe I'll make some treats, right? And I'll sell those treats, another revenue stream. If I insert that and look at the formula, do you remember that this formula a moment ago said B6 through B9, but because I inserted the new row between 6 and 9 in that case, it increased, it changed the formula. It actually expanded the formula. So that is a great question. Thank you for asking it. So we'll be selling treats, and maybe I'll be able to sell 8 packages of treats. So I'll do equals 8 packages of treats for the month. And I'll start by selling them at, I don't know, $8 each. Sure. Okay, you can see what didn't happen was it didn't automatically copy this formula down, but you know I can do that. My little fill handle, dragged it down and included it. So it's really, really easy in my mind, and I hope in yours now, to actually set up something like this. We can then work on some expense categories. I can always come up with some expense categories. So let's just do a couple of them before we go on to our template. Expenses. Oh, I'll fix that in a moment. It increased the indent automatically. I don't know why it did that. Sometimes Excel has a mind of its own. So of course, you know, we have rent and we have car and we have fuel and we have what other expenses? Oh, insurance, of course, and permits. You get the idea. So we'll put gross expenses. Okay, so this cell and this cell, I need to decrease the indent. Remember how we increased the indent, but now we need to decrease the indent. And because I'm going to change both of these, I could change them individually, but using the control key, it allows me to select this cell and this cell but not the cells in between. The control key would allow me to select, I'm just continuing to hold the control key. It would allow me to select any number of cells that I want that are discontiguous. Remember that I talked about using the shift key, that if I click on the first cell, hold down the shift key and click on the last cell, it will select everything in between. Well, another way of doing that, but not a contiguous group, is with the control key. So I'll click on expenses, click on gross expenses, and then I'll go back up to, remember that was on the home group in the alignment tab, and it was decrease indent. While I'm here, I might even make them both bold. I'll do that again. I'll click on the income cell. Oops, oh, made a mistake. I have my shift key. Hold down my control key and make it bold. Now, some people might say, well, is the gross income cell selected because it isn't gray? Do you see that when you select cells, they turn gray? But there's always one cell that doesn't turn gray, and that is the active cell. There can only ever be one active cell on your worksheet, and that active cell means that if you were to just type at that moment, it would go into that one cell, not all of the selected cells, just the one active cell. So we're going to say that our rent is 500, our car expense is 250, fuel, I never look at the cost of fuel, I just find it depressing. So I'll say it's, I don't know, 125, insurance is 75, and permits are 25. And so now I'm ready to add these numbers up. And you remember how we did that. We were in the cell in which we would like the total to appear. And we're going to come up on, we're still on our home group. We actually haven't changed from our home group yet. In our editing group, it's the home tab, I should call it. In the editing group, here's my auto sum. What do you think of my hot pink arrow? I did that just for you guys. Clicked on it once. It has put a marquee around the numbers that it wants to add. I'm going to accept that. And actually, I'm going to say that most of these numbers are going to be the same. My fuel I can adjust, and my car is going to be the same. My rent is going to be the same. So I'm just going to take these numbers and I'm going to fill them across using my fill handle. Don't you love that fill handle? I'm going to use my auto sum button to add those across. And here's a little tricky thing. Now that I've told you about the fill handle, if I want to fill this down, and it doesn't matter, in this case, it's what, 6 rows. If I wanted to fill it down 606 rows, all I have to do is click on the little fill handle and double click. Put my mouse on the fill handle and double click. It stopped because it saw that that was a different formula. So I can just take the fill handle and drag across that. Oh, we're in trouble, aren't we? Oh, I know why. It's not so bad. It's not. I was looking at this 11,000 compared to the 3,000 and thinking, well, that's not a very good business. But I forgot that we haven't filled in all of our income for the various months. Okay, now you see how I'm scrolling down, and one of the most disconcerting things is losing my headings, right? As I'm scrolling down, oh man, was this January? I wanted to put it in March. What is March? Oh, I have to scroll back up again. Okay, well, let me show you a little trickster on that. If I want, and in fact, I don't need to see these first 3 rows when I'm working on my worksheet. So I'm going to scroll so that the first row that I see is in fact row 4. And I'm going to then go up to the View tab. We're changing tabs. I'm going to go up to the View tab. And on the View tab, in the window group, it says Freeze Panes. And I'm going to ask it to freeze panes. Actually, I'm going to do it right from here, and I'll tell you why in a second. Freeze panes. There are 3 options relative to freezing panes. One is freeze panes, and it says Keep rows and columns visible while the rest of the worksheet scrolls based on the current selection. So based upon this being my current selection, it is going to freeze everything above that, and it's going to freeze everything to the left of that. I also have an option to freeze just the top row or just the first column. But this freeze pane is the one that I use most often. And that allows me to do two things. As I scroll down, oh, isn't that so much nicer? As I scroll down, I can still see the months that I'm talking about. And if I had information that needed to be scrolled over to the left, to the right, I should say, I can still see my categories, even though I may not be looking at my first columns. So this is great. Love that. I'm going to do Control Home and get myself back to the beginning. Okay, gross expenses a little cut off. Need to change my column width, right? Just put my mouse on the vertical line between A and B, a little click, click, business, and very nice. Okay, so now we're going to put in a formula that says net income. It really likes to have those cells, the text in them, indented. Once you try it, you might like it, but that does not need to be indented. We'll make it bold. So I'm going to click on the Home tab. Remember that was in the alignment group, and I'm going to reduce the indent and make that bold also. So here's time for another formula, right? Oh, yay. So what are we going to do? Well, we'll take our income, and from that, we're going to subtract our gross expenses, and that will give us our net income. So again, we're putting in a formula. Let's type the equal sign. It equals this. Once I type the equal sign, what I like to do is click on the actual cells. I could have typed in B11, but you know, these fickle fingers, anything could have been typed in. So by clicking on B11, it has put that in the formula. It's waiting for me to put in an operator, addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, you know all those four. I'm going to type in a little dash or a minus, and I'm going to say it minus the gross income, and we'll see that we have now a net income for the month of just over $1,000. And again, I'm going to take my fill handle and fill this across. And don't worry about all those negative numbers. Remember, we didn't fill in. As soon as we fill in some numbers here, that will correct itself, or hopefully it will correct itself, or we'll be out of business pretty quickly. Okay, will the auto sum still work if you, oh, I already did that, Victoria. Yes, yep. Sorry, I didn't see, I thought that was a new question. Okay, anybody have any questions so far? Well, I said I was going to do a little formatting because I really don't like seeing numbers without commas, numbers over 1,000. So I'm going to click on the first cell. You see, I could hold down the mouse and drag. It's not that hard. But oh, what if I released it there? Then I'd have to start all over again. I really like the click in the first cell, shift click in the last cell. And now I am going to, again, on the Home tab, look in the number group. In the number group, I don't really need dollar signs on everything, but I would like to see periods. I would like to see commas. So there is a comma button on here, and it has given me all the commas that I was looking for, but it's also given me two place settings, you know, for cents. And in our world, we don't worry about the pennies anymore. So we're going to use the decrease decimal button also in the same group. And now that's exactly what I wanted. It has done a number of things, hasn't it? It has given me the commas that I was looking for. Instead of having zeros, a moment ago, these were zeros, it has formatted it so they're just dashes, not zeros. And it has formatted our negative numbers so that they're in a paren. Okay, I see there's something in Q&A. Is your webinar being recorded? You bet, Anonymous. You bet. It's going to be recorded. And since you were here, Anonymous, you will be getting a copy of the link to it in the next day or two, as soon as we get this recording ready for distribution. Good. Okay. So we've done a nice little profit and loss. So in some respects, do you really need a template? It really is not that difficult setting up the profit and loss that you might be interested in doing. But if you've never seen one or never worked on one, then that's the time to think about using a template. So I'm going to go to the File menu. And you can see that it already gives me some templates that I can work with. It also has some tutorials and pivot table tutorial. One of my favorite things to do is use a pivot table. They seem to be tricky, but they're so impressive in their ability to help you analyze information. I'm going to go with a small business cash flow. Now, if I was looking for maybe a budget, oh, I see there is a personal monthly budget. But if I was looking for something that wasn't in this group, I could click on more templates, or I could just tell it what it was that I was looking for. Let's click on more templates, and you'll see that we have an invoice in here. I'm not totally sure that I would do my invoicing in this program. Not that it isn't a good program to do that, but what do you do? An invoice, a sheet for every client. I don't know, it gets a little tricky. Family budget, household to-do list, inventory, all kinds of templates here. Again, we're going to work with this cash flow. So where do you get templates from besides Excel? You want to be very careful about that. I wanted to emphasize this. I would not just go to Google and say, I'm looking for a cash flow forecast for my business. They can bring you to many websites that have templates, and perhaps they're very good, but templates can house bad information that can affect your computer. So only download templates from known locations. So for instance, Microsoft is a good known location. The SCORE website, score.org, there are templates there, and you can put in what you're looking for, cash flow template, and those have been screened and are safe for you to use. So be very, very careful where you're downloading from. But this is safe. It's from Microsoft. It's as safe as it gets. And so we can change some of this. This is my dog walking business. And you can see that this was actually set up. They have a very interesting formula in this location. And I'm going to enter in January 1st as our start date, and you'll see that all the months change. This formula is very complex. It looks very complex, but it actually is based upon a function called the today function. So you can't see new information.
Yeah, from my view, I just see the original Excel spreadsheet that you just created with the dog walking company, but I don't see anything new.
Oh no, I will have to fix that. Thank you. Okay, I might have to stop sharing and start sharing again. Share my screen. Thank you. Okay. How's that?
Yes, I can now see my dog walking business cash flow forecast in blue.
Okay, all right. So I was talking about a formula. This particular worksheet I like because all of the cells that contain formula, well, no, not quite, but many of the cells that contain formulas, or that I would expect to contain formulas, actually have a different color in them right now. So I should be cautious about entering any information in these gray cells because there's probably a formula in here, although no, not even true. This formula, you know what? I want to show you something really interesting. So how do you know if there's a formula in a cell or if it's a safe cell for you to type in? How do you know? Well, you could go along and you could click on every cell and look up in the formula bar and say, oh, I see a formula up there. Okay, I won't touch this. I won't touch this. All of these contain formulas. But there's another thing that you can also do from the formulas tab. If I click on the formulas tab, in the formula auditing group, there's something that says show formulas. And so instead of looking at the result of the formulas, it's actually showing me the cells that have formulas. Those that have numbers, that's not a formula. Somebody just typed that number in there. And I can show my formulas or I can hide my formulas. In this same group, and this is a brilliant feature that they added, quite a few years ago, but it is, if I looked at this number and I would say, okay, well, that formula says it equals the sum of these cells. All right, I get that. It's a sum of those cells. But where did this number come from? Well, I would, have to ferret that out. They have given us in the formula tab, in the formula auditing group, something called trace precedence. Where did this come from? Where did this number come from? And if I am in a cell that has a formula and I click on trace precedence, it will highlight for me in a very visible way, I think, exactly where that number came from. So, okay, that's good. Now I'm going to click on it again, trace precedence, because it will identify for me where this number came from. This number came as a result of adding these numbers across. Okay, I'm getting the idea now. But where did these numbers come from? I'm going to scroll out so you can see this a little bit better. Where did these numbers come from? I'll click on trace precedence again. And I can see, okay, they came as a result of adding these numbers. Oh, great. Is there anything else? Can I trace where that came from? No, that's it. When I click on trace precedence, I don't get any more arrows, so I can see exactly where this came from. So that's pretty handy. I'm going to remove the arrows. The alternative to that is trace dependence. Trace dependence. So in other words, what this is saying, I know when I change this number, I'm going to change this number to 5,000. Lots happened, lots changed, right? Well, what is dependent on this number? If I click on trace dependence, it will identify for me the first level of dependency. Yes, if I change that 5,000, that 5,000 changed, and this number changed to increase that 5,000. Oh, look at the time. How could the time be gone so quickly? Oh, okay, let me just do this quickly. So again, what other numbers? Any other numbers dependent on that? Okay, yeah, the total cash available. Anything else? Oh yeah, down here, the cash on hand at the end of the month. Anything else? Anything else dependent? Oh, wait, up here. Because this particular cash flow started with, if we had $10,000, if we put $10,000 into our business, then that's our cash flow at the beginning of the month. And then that is reduced or increased based upon our sales for the particular month. And so you can continue doing that. I find that I'm going to remove my arrows. I find that this is particularly helpful if you were ever in a situation where somebody gave you a worksheet and you're looking at it and you're thinking, OMG, this is so complex. I have no idea what is happening. I know if I change this, something else has changed. This is how you can figure that out. So I was going to put in 1/1/2025, and let's see what happens. Yep. So because these dates were actually dependent on this start date, I was able to change it and it automatically changed all of the dates. Okay, so the idea now is that all you have to do on these templates is fill in the blanks. Maybe you want to insert new items, or you want to, maybe you have no accounts receivable, everybody pays you in cash, so you don't need that. You could delete that, or you could replace it with, as I said, what you might want to do is list all of your products. So, all right, I'll put in dog sitting. Very nice. You can see that they have used the increase indent, which is very nice. And that might drive you crazy if you didn't know how they did that. If you wanted that moved out to the side, you might not remember how to do that, but remember that was on the home tab in the alignment group. We could increase or decrease the indent on that. So now you're just filling in the numbers. A well-designed template should be easy for you. Now, I want to show you one other thing, and that is I haven't addressed the fact that down at the bottom of the left side of your screen, you can see that we have tabs here. This tab is called the cash flow forecast. I'm going to actually rename that. I double clicked on it, and I'm going to call it 2025 cash flow. Because when 2026 rolls around, I want in this same document, I would like my 2026 cash flow. I've already got this lovely worksheet. I worked hard on all the formulas. They all seem to work. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this. In fact, move or copy. I'm going to move it or copy it. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a copy of it. So now I have cash flow 2 and cash flow. This one I'm going to double click on the little tab and have 2026 cash flow. Back when I was really working as opposed to whatever it is I'm doing now, I kept in one Excel worksheet all of my cash flow for 20 years because it just was easier for me to keep track of one file, one document that had everything in it. Let's see, take away from the meetings. Oh, is this the AI is?
We did have a question right before that about the templates, just above
most
the
for
AI
small.
one.
Which training is most helpful and easy to understand for newbies? Well, Microsoft training is actually, I'm concerned about if I do this, you're not going to see it, are you? What are you looking at?
We see your.
Yes, you do see this. Okay.
Yeah.
You see good afternoon, right?
Correct.
And new. Okay. Which of these are good? Well, welcome to Excel is probably a good place for newbies to start. It will probably walk you through much of what I was talking about today at the very beginning. Starting with formulas, also a very good, I'm sure, a very good video. I also do like going to YouTube and putting in my specific question. You know, if you want to find out more about the fill handle, what else does the fill handle fill? I would look for YouTube, and there's probably, you know, 1,000 people who have taken the time to create a video on that. It really, but which for small business, definitely a cash flow. You have to have that. And then it really depends upon what your business is, and do you need invoices? Do you need to keep track of huge amounts of data? I don't have a file. I was just looking to see if I had a file that had a lot of data in it that I could analyze, or just filter information, just thinking about something that doesn't have, no, that doesn't have data that's confidential that I could share with you. So I don't really have anything. Okay, we are 5 minutes. How is that Leola, did you change my clock
I
somehow?
did.
I'm sorry. I thought I was.
So the next question actually is something I was going to pose as a question. A person commented that they like this better than QuickBooks. And then they said, what is a pivot table? So my question was going to be, because I had a question about pivot tables earlier today. They wanted to know, so how can somebody learn about a pivot table from you? Or do we have any SCORE archive videos that you taught that? Or how can somebody contact you to get all these great answers?
Oh, well, so many questions. Let me first put in diane.mckeever@scorevolunteer.org is my email address. And yes, the recording will be available. We had a webinar some time ago, maybe more than a year ago, on pivot tables. And I will ask our admin if she would include that link, the link to that video, in her email to you, along with the link to this webinar. Pivot tables are glorious. Oh my gosh. If you have a lot of data, so maybe you have a point of sale system, and you can extract all kinds of information, the sales for the day, the week, the month, the year, what they bought, how much, what they paid for it. And you want to analyze this. It's so overwhelming to look at these columns of information and how you can massage it. And that's what a pivot table does. It would look at the information and it would say, okay, well, here are your sales by salesperson, by time of day, by day of the week, by a product, by any of the criteria that you might have in that list. It can analyze it for you. Pivot tables. I have a book. It's called 100 Amazing Computer Tips, available on Amazon. And there are chapters in it on different parts of Excel, as well as Word and PowerPoint and so forth. But I thought about writing a book just on pivot tables. I get so excited about them because they're so powerful. We might, in fiscal year 25, which in our world starts October 1st, we might just do a pivot table again, because it was so interesting. Okay, is that is about all the questions. I like this better than QuickBooks. QuickBooks has so many other features that Excel does not have. That's why I wouldn't really, unless you are a very small business, I wouldn't do my invoicing from here, because it would be hard to keep those historical invoices. But QuickBooks has its place, and certainly Excel has its place. I'm in Excel almost every day, keeping track of all kinds of information. Yeah, I'm known around here as the Excel queen, or maybe just in my household, I don't know. All right. Yes, go ahead, Leola, take it away.
Oh, I was just clicking through. I was like, gosh, that skipped along quite quickly. Just a reminder that you can find us at score.org/Minnesota. And Diane also put her information into the chat box. We have covered a lot of questions. And just wanted to thank all of our participants for tuning in today. We will send you a survey so that you can let us know what it is that we can do to improve or other topics that you may be interested in. Something that we can bring to you. There is something else in the chat box.
No, that was
Oh,
me.
that was from you. I'm trying to multitask. If we don't have anything else, thank you so much. And everyone have a great afternoon.
Bye. Make it tell your friend. I can't believe how fast.